What is up, guys? Randomodium here. We're now 3 hours away from the beginning of the 2016 World Championship for League of Legends, and I wanted to post one last video where I'm actually going to break down match by match what I think is going to happen in the group stage of the World Championships. So these are the four groups. I'm sure you guys all know the different teams and the different groups. And this is who I predicted was going to advance out of the group stage. So in Group A, I had Rocks, Tigers, and G2 advancing first, second, and then in Group B, I had SKT and Cloud9 advancing. Group C, I had EDG and H2K advancing, and then Group D, I had TSM and Samsung Galaxy. So I'm going to break down how I think each of the matches is going to go down for every single group. So Group A, starting off with Group A. So the first match on day one is going to be G2 versus CLG. This is going to happen right after the opening ceremony. You know, the crowd's going to be going crazy. You know, it's going to be an NA favored crowd. And I think that's actually going to really benefit CLG. And I also think that G2 is going to be looking past CLG a little bit because pretty much everybody under the sun says that G2 is a much superior team to CLG, and I definitely have to agree. If you look at just the lane matchups in general, it's a very challenging matchup for CLG. I mean, if you look at top lane, Expect versus Darshan. I mean, Expect probably gets the nod there. Trick versus Xmithy. Definitely Trick wins that one. Okay, well now we got Perks versus Huhi. Well, yeah, Perks wins that one as well. Then you go bot lane and you've got Sven and Mithy versus Stixxay and Aframu. Well, Sven and Mithy are one of the best bot lanes in the world, so you got to go with them. So it's really hard to figure out where CLG is going to get an advantage. And where CLG gets the advantage is team fighting, shot calling, macro play, things like that, which G2 is definitely no slouch in. But I think that in this matchup, first match of Worlds, it's going to be crazy. G2 is going to have a lead for most of the game, but CLG is going to keep it close. It's going to be a 2 to 3k gold difference for most of the game, and then there's going to be a late game team fight, probably around 45 minutes or so, that's going to blow the game wide open for CLG. And CLG is going to upset G2 with the home crowd behind them in the first match on Worlds, and that's going to set the stage for the entire World Championship. It's going to be absolutely crazy. That's my prediction for the first match of Worlds. The second matchup is going to be Rocks Tigers versus Albus Nox. I think that Rocks Tigers is definitely going to win that one relatively easily. So continuing on with the matches for Group A, in Day 2, Group A gets the day off, and they will continue their matchups in Day 3, where CLG will take on Albus Nox. I think CLG will be able to win that. The second match for Group A in that day will be Rocks Tigers versus G2. I also think that Rocks Tigers will be able to defeat G2 just because Rocks Tigers is definitely the favorite to win this tournament. Day 4, we've got Albus Nox versus G2. I think G2 will win that. And then there will be CLG versus Rocks Tigers. I do not think CLG will be able to beat Rocks Tigers. Day 5 is when the rest of the Group A matches will be decided. So it's going to be 6 matches, all on Day 5, that are all Group A. So you're going to have G2 versus Rocks. I think Rocks will win that. Albus Nox versus CLG. I think CLG will win that. Then G2 will get to rematch with CLG, and I think that G2 is actually going to smash CLG in that game. They're not going to look past them, and they're just going to try and close out that game in a very rapid fashion. The fourth match will be Rocks versus Albus Nox, and I think Rocks Tigers will win that one as well. Then you'll have G2 versus Albus Nox, and I think that G2 will wind up winning that one. And then you'll have Rocks versus CLG, and I definitely think that Rocks will win that one. So that's going to set up actually a tie between G2 and CLG because they will have both lost to Rocks Tigers twice, and they will have gone 1-1 against each other, and they will have beaten Albus Nox twice. So they'll both be 3-3. That'll set up a tiebreaker. I think G2 will win that tiebreaker, and they will advance as the second seed from Group A. Moving on to Group B, we've got the first match for Group B is actually going to occur on Day 2. They get a day off the first day, and the first match in Group B is SKT versus Cloud9. I think a very similar thing is going to happen with this match that also happens between G2 and CLG. If we look at NA teams in the past, they come out guns blazing, especially with the hometown crowd, especially being the first match of the day in both of those cases. I think they strongly favor the NA teams because the crowd is going to be incredibly hyped up. And I also think that SKT is going to have a very slow start in the World Championship. I think that they're going to try to see how, if they can try out some new strategies at the beginning of the tournament, and then if they wind up losing with like the new strategies, then they're going to go back to more meta things. So I wouldn't be surprised if SKT tried to do something a little bit unusual in this game and it winds up failing, and then Cloud9 capitalizes and they wind up winning that game. The second match for uh, Group B on day 2 will be Flash Wolves versus IMA. I do think that Flash Wolves will win that game. Then on day 3, we'll have Flash Wolves versus Cloud9. I think Cloud9 will be riding high on that one, and they will use that momentum to beat Flash Wolves. And then the second match for Group B will be IMA versus SKT. SKT will come back and just absolutely smash IMA after losing to Cloud9. And then in day 4, it'll be SKT versus Flash Wolves. I actually think that Flash Wolves will upset SKT in this match. Flash Wolves has been known as the Korean killer. I do think that they will be able to upset SKT in a very long match. It'll probably be like a 50-minute long match. And then the last match in day 4 will be Cloud9 versus IMA, and I do think that Cloud9 will take that round. Then we go, there won't be any matches for Group B until day 8 of the tournament, the last day before the knockout stage. And on day 8, the first match will be IMA versus Flash Wolves, and I'm actually predicting that IMA is going to come from behind, very similar to how they won their Game 5 to get into the World Championships and the regional qualifiers. They'll come from behind, and they will beat Flash Wolves in the first match of day 8. Next up, it will be Cloud9 versus SKT. And I think that Cloud9 is going to be coming in thinking that they can beat SKT, and SKT is just going to shut the door on them. SKT is going to not overlook Cloud9. They are going to draft a very solid comp. They're not going to do anything stupid. They're just going to play rock solid, and they're going to beat Cloud9, and that's actually going to really hurt Cloud9's psyche a little bit. I think that it's very possible that Jensen and or Impact will go on tilt a little bit, and right after Cloud9 faces SKT, they have to go out and face Flash Wolves. And I think that Flash Wolves will capitalize on that fact, and they will beat Cloud9 as well. So Cloud9 will go 0-2 starting off the day on day 8, and it will look very grim, but don't worry about it. The next match will be SKT versus IMA. I do think SKT will beat IMA, and then it will be IMA versus Cloud9, and I think that IMA is going to be, they just came off the stage after getting beaten by SKT, and then they go in to face Cloud9, and Cloud9 is itching for a win, and Cloud9 is going to wind up smashing IMA in that matchup. And then the final match is going to be Flash Wolves versus SKT. And I think that that is going to be an absolute barn burner. It's going to be an incredibly long game. And I think in the very end, SKT will win a decisive team fight to win the game. And that's going to wind up with SKT and Cloud9 tied at 4-2, Flash Wolves at 3-3. So that will take SKT and Cloud9 to a tiebreaker, which SKT will win, and they will secure the number 1 seed from Group B. Moving on to Group C, the first match that you'll see in Group C will be day 1. It'll be H2K versus AHQ. I think that the crowd will get behind H2K very strongly in a similar way that they got behind the North American teams, and I think H2K will win a very close matchup against AHQ. And then the next match will be INTZ versus EDG. I think that'll be an absolute blowout. EDG will win very easily. Moving on to day 2, H2K will face INTZ. I do believe H2K will win. that will not be as decisive as INTZ versus EDG. And then it'll be EDG versus AHQ, which EDG will also win relatively easily. Day 3, Group C will get a break, so they will resume play on Day 4, where it will be AHQ versus INTZ. I do believe that AHQ will win that, and then EDG versus H2K, EDG will win that match also relatively easily. EDG is definitely the favorite in that group. Moving on to Day 6, that's when we're going to have the gauntlet for Group C. So 6 matches from Group C on Day 6. First match will be EDG versus INTZ, which EDG will win. Next will be AHQ versus H2K. I do believe that H2K is going to be looking past AHQ a little bit because they've already beaten AHQ, and the next match that they will have to face is EDG, so they'll be preparing more for that matchup than the AHQ matchup. And AHQ will just barely beat H2K in that match. So that will definitely dishearten H2K when they go into their match against EDG, and they will wind up losing that match against EDG. Next, we'll have INTZ versus AHQ. AHQ will win that, and then INTZ will have to go back up on the stage against H2K, and they will wind up losing that match as well. So INTZ will have 2 very quick losses to end their Worlds run. And then the final match of that day will be AHQ versus EDG, which EDG will win. I think EDG is going to win pretty much every game relatively easily. They will wind up going 6-0 in their group. H2K and AHQ will wind up going 3-3. They will go 1-1 against each other, and then they will wind up losing both of their matches against EDG. So they will play a tiebreaker, and I believe that H2K will win the tiebreaker and secure the number 2 spot for Group C. Finally, we have Group D, which is the group of death. Definitely the hardest group to predict. On Day 1, we'll be starting off with Samsung versus Splyce. These teams I think, will play very similar. I just feel like Samsung is a better version of Splyce in a lot of ways. They have very similar play styles, and I do think that Samsung will be able to beat Splyce in that opening game. And then it'll be TSM versus RNG, and the crowd will absolutely erupt. That's actually going to be the last game on Day 1. So the crowd is going to be very eager for that match. And I do think that TSM will beat RNG in that match. Moving on to Day 2, TSM will take the stage again against Samsung. I do believe that TSM will be able to beat Samsung, but it's going to be a really close match. And then the second match for Group D on Day 2 will be RNG versus Splyce, and I'm predicting an upset. I think that Splyce is going to match up very well with RNG. I think it's going to be an extremely long game where Splyce is maybe behind for the good first portion of the match, and then RNG is going to make a mistake, and Splyce is going to capitalize, and Yamato Cannon is going to go crazy, and Splyce is going to wind up winning that match. Riding on that high, Day 3 will start off with Splyce versus TSM. I don't believe that Splyce will have enough to upset TSM. TSM will win that one, but it's going to be a really close game. I think that Splyce is going to give them a real run for their money on Day 3. And then we have RNG versus Samsung, and I do believe that Samsung will win that game in a relatively convincing fashion. Group D then gets a break. They come back on Day 7 for their gauntlet, where they'll play their remaining 6 matches. The first match of that day is going to be Samsung versus TSM. And I think TSM at this point, they're going to be 3-0 in the group. They're going to be a little bit cocky, and they're going to come into that match. They're going to try a new strategy, something different that we haven't seen before, and it's going to blow up in their face. They're going to wind up losing that match to Samsung Galaxy and dropping to 3-1. The next match will be Splyce versus RNG. I think that RNG is going to learn from their mistakes against the first match with Splyce. They're going to make the corrections they need to make. They'll wind up beating Splyce in probably 40 to 45 minutes or so. The third match of that day is going to be TSM versus Splyce. I think the Splyce is going to be a little bit on tilt after losing to RNG, when they beat RNG earlier in the group stage. That's going to allow TSM to have a relatively easy victory in that second matchup against Splyce. The fourth match will be Samsung versus RNG. I think that RNG definitely has a chance to win this one, so I'm going to give them the slight nod to beat Samsung and go 1-1 against Samsung. And then we're going to have Splyce versus Samsung for the fifth match. I think Samsung's going to learn from their mistakes against the RNG matchup. They're going to come out swinging and wind up beating Splyce in a relatively convincing fashion. And then the final match of the day is going to be RNG versus TSM, and that's going to be won by TSM in a very long match. I think that's going to be a very challenging match for TSM, but they will wind up winning that match. That'll allow TSM to secure the number 1 spot at 5-1. Samsung will get the number 2 spot, and RNG will just barely miss out because they lost that match to Splyce, and Splyce will finish at 1-5. So my predictions, closing out the groups, Rocks Tigers will be the first seed from Group A, G2 will be the second seed. In Group B, it'll be SKT and Cloud9. Group C will be EDG and H2K, and Group D will be TSM and Samsung Galaxy. So let me know if you agree with my predictions, if you think I'm completely off base, or you think that I'm a prophet. Definitely let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like if you like the content on the channel. Please subscribe. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all enjoy Worlds regardless of the outcome. Have an amazing great day. Have an amazing World Championships. This is Randomonium signing off.